General Shaw's plan to control Pennywise becomes crystal clear as both the Losers Club and the military converge in the sewers under the house on Neibolt Street to track down the clown. Folks, tonight we are headed back into the world of Welcome to Derry. Stay tuned. What's going on, scary movie people? Welcome to the show. I appreciate you tuning in for another brand new review. I'm T Watches a Scary Movie, and tonight we are headed back into the world of Welcome to Derry. We are going to be talking 29 Neibolt Street. Now, if you're a fan of It Chapter 1, then this is a good episode for you because you likely remember the big scene that went down in that film where the Losers Club of that movie went to the house in order to track Pennywise down. They end up finding the missing flyer for Richie. Ben gets stabbed or cut open with like an iron bar. It's a gnarly, scary fight. Really gross one, but a really good one. And yet somehow Welcome to Derry ends up crafting a completely different experience here for the TV show. So I'm excited to jump into that with all of you. But of course, make sure to hit that follow button, hit that subscribe button, no matter where you are tuning in. Got a lot of great horror content on the channel right now. A lot of really good stuff coming up that I don't want you guys to miss that I'm gonna talk about here at the end of the show. But let's not waste any more time. Let's jump on into things here with Welcome to Derry. Again, we are talking 29 Neibolt Street. Let's first run down what goes on in the episode. So with the Losers Club, Marge ends up finally joining up with them after her Pennywise attack in the previous episode where she tried to gouge her own eyes out. She admits her fault in her breakdown of the friendship with Lily, and now that she's seen everything that's going on, easily joins up with the rest of the club. And the club is shocked to discover that Matty is alive and well, hiding out in their clubhouse. Matty, if you remember from the first episode, was the kid in the car, got attacked by the demon mutant baby, and we all presumed he was dead like all the other kids. But Matty tells the Losers Club that Phil is still alive, and this is when Lily comes up with the plan that the only way to really clear Hank's name is to get Phil and to bring him to the police, because Matty alone is probably not going to do that because there's a contentious relationship between Matty and his father. But if you bring Phil in, who's likely injured and bitten up and all these different things there, that should make it fairly easy for them to get Hank off of the current charges that he's at. So they make a plan that they're going to take Lily's mom's diazepam so that they don't feel any kind of fear, and they decide that they're headed to the sewers under the house on Neibolt Street. Now, with the military, Shaw revealed his plan to Leroy that the whole idea is to track down Pennywise and to basically control him using the pillars that they have been trying to use to keep Pennywise contained. Now, Rose shows up and convinces Shaw that, look, if you're going to do this, you at least have to send Taniel in, and you have to send him in with the meteorite dagger so that everybody can still be safe. Because remember, the military right now doesn't really know that much about Pennywise, his weakness, its weaknesses, anything under those lines there. Rose is the keeper of all of this and has obvious knowledge that can keep everybody safe. But if they're not going to withdraw from this, she's not going to send them in unprepared. Like, General Shaw and Rose are still somewhat friends. They're not enemies per se, but she's trying to make sure that everybody still ends up safe. And of course, this ends up with Dick, with Leroy, with Polly, and Taniel, along with their military companions, all headed to the house on Neibolt Street as well. On the other side of things, Charlotte, who's still looking for a way to get Hank off of the charges of killing all the kids in that first episode, finds out that Hank's bus that was going to take him to Shawshank was attacked. Now, we later find out that that attack was by Pennywise, and Hank ends up with Nurse Ingrid from Juniper Hill. This turns out to be Hank's alibi. Remember, Hank said that he was with a married woman to Charlotte, but he couldn't explain or say who it was because it's a white woman, she's married, and those things could not only lead to worse things for him, but much worse things for her. And finding out it's Ingrid, we get a chance to see her husband and sees that he doesn't seem like too great of a fellow. More of that makes sense. And Ingrid ends up coming to Charlotte to try to figure out a way to stash Hank until they can figure out how to ultimately clear his name. Now, the Losers Club and the military end up converging in the sewers under the house on Neibolt Street. This is interesting just because of the fact that in It Chapter 1, most of that scene actually took place in the house itself. Like, yeah, they went to the well that's there in the house, and that's ultimately where the film ended. But it doesn't change the fact that the scariest parts of that were in the actual house itself. And here in this episode, instead, we're not really experiencing the house. Like, there is no haunted house. There aren't any funhouse gags like we see in the movie here. Instead, it is all focused in on the sewer. And I think that's a good idea because we're already running back a few things from the It films. We don't really need to do that. We're 4 episodes in, we have that familiarity. We need to get more Pennywise-centric things. And so getting us into the sewer is a good way in order to actually connect us more to Pennywise, even when it's not on screen that much for us. So the Losers Club and the military end up in the sewers, and it's revealed that Matty is not actually Matty. Matty is very much dead. All of those kids in that first episode are actively dead. Matty was Pennywise in disguise, basically trying to trick the kids to come down in the sewers to make his next meal that much easier, and he gives chase to the kids. On the other side with the military, unfortunately, Pennywise is able to attack Dick, and he unlocks Dick's ghost boxes that we'll talk a little bit more about later, that allows Dick to start seeing all the ghosts and various demonic entities that are around him. Things take a tragic turn, though, when the two groups end up converging, and when Leroy thinks that his son Will is actually an apparition of Pennywise and goes to shoot him, Paulie ends up stepping in the way as he realizes that Will is actually there, and Leroy accidentally shoots him and kills him. Now, the episode ultimately ends with Dick finally escaping the sewers, and we see that Dick has a vision of Ghost Paulie nearby. A lot went down in this episode, and simply put, none of the characters involved at this point can believe that Pennywise is not a thing anymore. Like, maybe Charlotte, even though she got her own encounter as she goes to see Hank getting transferred to Shawshank, and she sees like one of the cops standing in the transfer window with Pennywise's teeth looking gnarly as hell. That's not confirmation for her, but everybody else is very firm in the belief that Pennywise is absolutely a thing. And halfway through the season, we needed to hit that point because we can't be trying to convince people anymore. Such a different dynamic from the films, because in the films, we are centered solely around the Losers Club pretty much being the only ones who believe in everything that's going on. Whether they're kids, whether they're adults, they're the only ones aware of everything that's happening. And it's nice in this show that we get to see what dealing with just an out of this world cosmic entity truly feels like from both sides. It's not that the adults in here, most of them haven't had experiences with Pennywise before. It's that they now have to process everything that's being put in front of them. And I love that because it gives us so many different perspectives on believing what's right in front of you. And depending on your age you are that you're watching this, I'm sure everybody's taking a different perspective of the different characters that we're following along here. Now, some of the interesting things here to talk about with this. Pennywise as Matty, when he first reveals himself to the Losers Club earlier on in the episode, starts describing that night where all the kids got brought down to the sewer and Pennywise is just ripping them apart. And his way that he describes what happens to Susie, that Susie gets her arm ripped off and she's just bleeding out and crying throughout the night, even though we know, or we find out that Matty is Pennywise, that doesn't change that what he told the kids is likely still true, that Pennywise still put the kids through the exact hell that he described when he was dressing up as Matty. And man, That is some cold shit right there. I swear, Pennywise is just devilish to these kids, and it almost feels like it's way worse than what he puts the Losers Club of the films through, honestly. Like, he is tormenting these kids like no other. And even though we've seen Pennywise take the form of other people before, he's taken on the form of a lot of people in the films. This kind of subterfuge is like long term. That's like really in depth for Pennywise to do. Like, this whole plan to get the kids down to the sewer is like crazy. And I guess it's the only plan that could have worked. Like, it worked for him for sure. But man, that just seems like such a risk, because not one of the kids is like, you know what? That don't make no sense at all. Like, he killed all those kids and you somehow got away from this. Not buying that in the least bit. But they're kids. What do you expect from that? I just think the Pennywise work in this show is just diabolical. And Lord knows HBO needs to get off their asses and get this renewed immediately, because now I'm curious of what this looks like going back even further, because we know that's the plan, is to go back more and more and more. So I wonder what Pennywise is going to be doing to kids decades ago from now. Gotta see it. Absolutely gotta see it. General Shaw ends up highlighting a big Derry callback that honestly I hadn't thought too much about prior to this episode, but it is a big part of not only the new films, but the original miniseries as well too. The idea that once you move away from Derry, you start losing your memories of anything that kind of went down there. And General Shaw tells Rose that, man, I didn't remember any of this until I got a shot recently here and it all started coming flooding back. I think that's such a great callback, just because at the end of this season, depending on who's alive, somebody is moving away, right? Somebody's absolutely leaving Derry, and chances are they're not going to have any connection to the films after this. So I'm curious to see who that's going to end up being, because Lord, that just opens the mind up to see, like, all right, so where do they go from here at this point, right? Just love that idea. I think that is so fantastic. More Dr. Sleep connections. A lot of you are going to argue The Shining, but look, man, I've watched Dr. Sleep an insurmountable amount of times compared to The Shining. It is the better movie. You can debate that in the comment section all you want. It's the better film there. And Dr. Sleep really is the thing that introduces the whole idea of the boxes, that you put your ghosts in these boxes, these spiritual vampires in these boxes. You lock them away and they can't torment you anymore. They can't take you. They can't kill you. And that's what Dickie was taught as a kid. Dick was taught to use those boxes to lock those ghosts up. And I think for a lot of us who know what Dick Halloran ends up like becoming, what ends up happening in his life, a lot of us are probably waiting to see when Dick would start encountering these ghosts, because you don't just bring that character from The Shining, from Dr. Sleep, and put them in the world of Welcome to Derry if you're not going to actually utilize that. And the fact that Pennywise is able to sense that out, talks about how this is just dumb, we're going to open these all on up and just let hell reign free. Whoa, completely unhinged. And again, goes back to the diabolical thing. Pennywise is going to be a jerk, whether it's to the kids or to the adults. The fact that Pennywise takes on the Uncle Sam, the demonic Uncle Sam, and kills a couple soldiers in the sewers, that's not lost on me as well too. The imagery and the messaging behind that when it comes to our military, that's deep. That is deep there. But again, the fact that those boxes get unlocked and that leads to Dick seeing his first ghost in what we have to assume is a long while, which is the ghost of Polly. Not going to be the end of Dick seeing ghosts. That's obviously going to have to play a big factor in what goes on in the second half of this season. But I love the connections, because obviously there's so much inner workings of Stephen King, different novels and short stories and TV shows and movies that are always in the books. Like, all of that ends up being connected, but it's rare we get to see a lot of those connections in like the live action media. So I love the fact that we get this big expanded universe here, and it might only be The Shining and Shawshank Redemption and Dr. Sleep and It right now, but Lord, it makes the lore of everything just that much more interesting. This is a really, really good episode, and it starts a turn for this season of Welcome to Derry, to where we start just getting action-packed events happening episode after episode after episode. We have a lot of the exposition out of the way at this point. A lot of the exposition is done. So now we can just get to all the important events going down. And something big is coming up, because the council that's responsible for keeping track of Pennywise and knows that he emerges every few decades, 27, 29 years, they've said that there's going to be a big, horrendous event that's going to go down before Pennywise hibernates again. And as we know, Pennywise is not going to die, because he's obviously going to be back here for these films. Wondering what that event is going to be, because it's going to be something really bad, right? So speculate on that. No spoilers, obviously. I know the season is over there, but speculate on what that could end up being in the comment section. And let me know, folks, what are we thinking so far of the first half of season 1 of Welcome to Derry? I know that there is just so many fans out there of this show, but apparently a lot of you were not big fans of the first half compared to the second half. So I'm wondering if that's true. Let me know in the comment section. And of course, get subscribed to my link tree. That's the best way to stay on top of all the content I'm going to be dropping for y'all. You can do that by going to linktr.ee/tscarymovie. What I have coming up for y'all here, we're going to jump back into Dexter Resurrection. I still got a few episodes there I need to cover with all of you. And then next week, we're going to get back into Movies Week. So we're going to be talking Stalker Jane, Diabolic. We're going to get into Scream 7. Yeah, y'all, Scream 7 is next week. Got a lot of really good stuff coming up. And my interview with Tales from the Crypt actress Sherry Rose as well. So next week's going to be a big one here, but you're not going to catch any of that if you don't hit that follow or subscribe button. But that's it for me tonight here, folks. I appreciate y'all tuning in. My name is T. We've been talking scary movies. Stay scared.